everybody, Pastor Jay here from Know the Truth. You'll have to excuse me because I just woke up and I'm not wearing any pants. In this video, I'm going to pick apart a video that Clarky posted. He mentions the Old Testament and why he disagrees with it. He goes on to talk about the laws, the rules, the regulations, the inconsistencies, and more. Now in your video, you talked about that your video was meant in no way to disrespect anybody, so I'm going to return the favor. I will not disrespect you. I'm just going to tell you why you're wrong. I know that I can come off like an asshole sometimes, but I assure you, I'm just very passionate about always being right. Anyway, on to your video. You make a common mistake that all Christians make. You generalize. You also take the Old Testament way out of context. That's okay though, it's because you're an atheist. That means God doesn't speak directly to you. You see, in order to understand the Bible, you have to pledge your undying allegiance to God and your pastor. Then you have to get on your knees and pray for the Holy Spirit to interpret the Bible for you. Don't worry though. As an atheist, I know that you're very stubborn, so I've done all the work for you. I'm gonna go ahead and play a majority of your video and interject where I need to. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer all your questions. So let's start here.
I have a few issues with the Old Testament. No, I don't find the stories themselves in the Bible to be repugnant or bad really in any way. They're just stories to me.
Inspired by God.
I find it that when men take these stories as literal truth or as inspired by God but written by men and to be a basis for our morals and our laws, that I find repugnant and evil.
So there are two problems with this. The first is that they cannot be repugnant and evil because they are inspired by God. Remember, God isn't evil, Satan is. And what does Satan do? He deceives us. The second part of this that needs to be mentioned is the fact that you do the same exact thing with your science books and your science fiction fantasy books. You're basically the pot calling the kettle African American.
When taken as a whole, the Old Testament is at best pathetic and weak, and majority of the time contradictory and vague and ambiguous, and at worst downright dangerous and evil.
Only when you take it out of context.
Now, why am I attacking Christianity?
You're actually not attacking Christianity. Since you're dealing with the Old Testament, you're clearly attacking Judaism. Judaism, Jerusalem, Christianity, America. Somebody needs to get you a map.
Well, I was raised a Catholic.
That's a good reason to be mad at God, by the way.
And those beliefs are foundational upon the Bible. There's a few other things included in it, but the foundation is the Bible. And the Old Testament is a large portion of that belief. The Old Testament is staple for all creationist claims, but they really all have their beginnings in Genesis.
That is exactly right. See, the one thing that you scientists and evolutionists do not have is a book that tells you exactly how this world came to be. And that's our evidence right there. That's all we need. God literally took his hand and put it on the book as it was being written, and he made it so that nobody could tell a lie in writing the book. He was also standing next to the authors as they wrote the Bible, telling them what exactly they had to say. I don't see what more evidence you need besides that. So you evolutionists and you scientists are taking the long way around things. It's like you know that he's real, but you want to find your own answers anyway.
They maintain this in the face of all scientific evidence, because to do so would be, at least in their eyes, to completely invalidate their beliefs in God.
Whoa, 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 whoa. We do nothing but use scientific evidence to support our theory, to support our fact. If I remember correctly, I hear nothing but theory of in every one of your scientific claims. You never hear science talking about facts. You challenge me with any claim in the Bible and I'll show you scientific evidence as to why it's real. Now, if any of that scientific claim goes against the Bible, it's not real science.
One claim that I hear over and over again is that there was a literal worldwide flood about 4,000 years ago.
Okay, here's the deal. There was a literal worldwide flood about 4,000 years ago. But there's one thing that this flood advocates always fail to mention. And it's also one thing I've covered in many of my videos before. The flood happened on Mars. Now you're probably thinking, oh, it's a crazy pastor talking about another crazy thing. But no shit, it really happened on Mars. That's why there's no evidence here on this planet. Satan tricked God into thinking that Mars was actually planet Earth. And so when God put humans on Earth, he actually put them on Mars. Now Satan took aliens from planet X, which he also created, and he put them on Mars to interbreed with humans. Now when God found out about this, he was pretty angry. So he told Noah to build 3 spaceships. Possibly more, but we haven't found any evidence of those spaceships here on Earth yet. One spaceship was filled with humans, one with animals, and the other one was supplied with all the food and all the experimentation that was going on at the time. Now the reason why we have GMOs is because the lab experiment went wrong on that last ship and bad things happened. Anyway, that's why we found 3 arks on this planet so far. And that's why we don't have any evidence of the flood happening here on Earth. I would love to debate you about this sometime.
Now, with the flood in mind, this brought me, in my research, to the morals that the Old Testament teaches. After all, what morals can we actually learn from a genocidal magic man in the sky? Everyone seems to be able to quote Leviticus when it rails against homosexuality. But what else did the Old Testament teach? And mind you, Jesus did say that not a title or a jot of the old law was to pass away.
He never said that. Actually, he meant the 10 Commandments when he said that. But he's God, so he can do whatever he wants. So he can say one thing and do another because he's God and he created the universe. And you're taking things out of context. Because if you read the original Hebrew, it doesn't say that.
Even though he himself was pretty okay with working on the Sabbath, hanging out with thieves and publicans, and kind of much just pissing all over Moses' law, while at the same time telling everyone else that they had to follow the old law.
Now see, again, you're messing things up. He hung out with those people so he could save their souls. He took no joy in their company, I assure you. I visit truck stops all the time. Now I admit that in my past I used to do it to make some extra cash, but now it's more of a journey that I go on to save people's souls. Those truck drivers are dirty perverts.
So, what were these old laws? How about death for wearing mixed fabrics?
He was saying that you would die, not because he would kill you, but the fabric was poisonous.
Death for adultery.
He wouldn't kill you, the husband would.
Death for not yelling loud enough if you were raped.
Because if you didn't scream loud enough, nobody would be able to save you, and you would be killed by your rapist.
Death for pulling out during sex.
Oh, that's real. If you kill sperm, God kills you.
Death for working on the Sabbath.
Yeah, it's called working yourself to death. Everyone needs a break sometime.
Rules against eating pork.
Pork is nasty.
Rules against eating shellfish.
You could die choking on a shellfish. He's just trying to help.
Rules detailing the buying and selling of slaves.
They wanted to be slaves.
Death to children for disrespecting their parents. Mandatory human sacrifice.
Oh, come on, that's not true.
The Old Testament condones genocide, infanticide, child rape, marital rape, murder, prostitution, polygamy, but those last two only if you're a man, usury to non-Hebrews, bigotry, and it reeks of racism and sexism.
Alright, sure, there are a lot of things in the Bible that seem kind of quirky, but I promise you, if you pray, and you pray, and you pray some more, the Holy Spirit will guide you in the right direction. He'll make you understand what those words actually mean. And until you study the Hebrew edition of the Bible, you're never going to understand it. So sure, things seem kind of weird, but they all make sense with God goggles on.
But even if a Christian were to happily ignore all the unpleasant parts of the Old Testament, they still have to deal with all sorts of contradictions and failed prophecies.
Okay, so you go on to talk about several prophecies in the Old Testament and how they couldn't have come true. I don't have time to go into all the details right now, but I'll go over a few that kind of struck a chord with me. When you mentioned Nebuchadnezzar destroying Tyre, the Bible wasn't talking about the actual place, it was talking about the people. When you mentioned the prophecy about Egypt being desolate for 40 years, you remember the Exodus where all the slaves left? Yeah, Egypt was entirely populated by slaves. And when the slaves left, there was nothing left in Egypt. Just a king, some servants, and a few handmaids. So that's true right there. When you mention the prophecy about Israel having no more painful briars or sharp thorns, the Bible literally meant painful briars and sharp thorns. Look at some pictures of Israel right now. Find me a plant. Find me a thorn. The Bible wasn't talking about actual people. Israel is God's country and everybody's trying to destroy it. That won't end until Jesus comes back. And the next part, you make another point which I strongly disagree with, and I'll tell you why.
So before this, the Jews were just nomads that originated in Canaan. In fact, we have zero archaeological evidence that there was ever a mass exodus into Egypt and out of Egypt.
Do you think there'd really still be tire tracks left in the sand after 2,000 plus years? You gotta remember these people are slaves and they own nothing, which basically means they couldn't drop any trash anywhere. They ate manna from the heavens and they drank the rain whenever it rained. So in my opinion, it's easy to see how all these people could have walked through the desert for 40 years and not leave a trace of themselves. So for the rest of the video, you go on to talk about the history of the Jews from a secular vantage point. You bring up books, you talk about people, and you keep mentioning that there's a great debate between all this stuff. You know where there's not a debate? In the Bible. Now I'll be honest, I don't think that you're stupid. I just think that you're misguided by the devil. Always remember when you're reading your sources, if your sources don't go back to the Bible, then you're learning from a secular perspective. Secularism equals Satanism, and Satan wants nothing more than to fool you into thinking that the Bible is not legitimate. If you have any more questions on the Bible, both Old Testament and New Testament, don't send me any emails. I'm just going to cover them more in this video series. Anyway, I hope this video helped, and and I hope you have a good day, sir. Please remember to subscribe to my original YouTube channel and subscribe to Secular TV so you can see all these videos in their original format. Also, be sure to check out all the other links that are in this video's description. Thanks for watching, and always remember, in a world of magic and make pretend, anything is possible.